Welcome to the Fundraising Leadership Podcast, where we engage in thoughtful conversations with professionals in the nonprofit world or professionals in professional development and personal development, as is the case today. I'm here today with my partner, Janice Cunning. Good morning, Janice.
Morning, Margaret.
And we have the treat today of having an author with us whose name is Homaira Kabir. She caught my eye with her book about perfectionism, or saying, kind of putting that down. It's called Goodbye Perfect: How to Stop Pleasing, Proving, and Pushing for Others and Live for Yourself. And Homaira is the funder and CEO of the Goodbye Perfect project that provides science-backed tools, programs, and experiences to help women rise to their highest potential. She's a coach, she's a thought leader, she's an author, and she's a scientist, and we are very happy to have her here today. Good morning, Homaira.
Good morning, Margaret. What a wonderful introduction. Thank you.
Sure.
Yes. And I'm excited because Homaira has recently moved back to Toronto, where I am. So we're also new neighbors.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And we'd love to just start by asking you, why this book? I know that's a big question, but maybe just a little intro. Why did you choose this book to write, or why did it choose you?
Why did it choose me? What a wonderful way of putting it. I think writing chose me. When I sometimes think back to my life, writing is not a subject that I ever took in my life or in any of my college, university, whatever. But writing is something that chose me. It kind of draws me. So I knew that I wanted to write something. And then obviously my profession took me toward this topic. So when I did my master's and I was doing my postgrad research, what I was really trying to understand was, what does it take for us to flourish? What does it take for women in particular to flourish? So my subject wasn't confidence, it wasn't perfection, it was none of those. It was really trying to understand, how do we rise to our highest potential? And how do we help others do that? Because it was a master's in positive psychology and coaching psychology. And what I found was that we are, as human beings, wired to flourish, just like every other living thing is wired to flourish. It is the concept of entelechy. It is inbuilt within us. And what it needs is the right environment to flourish. And what we don't get, a lot of us, is that right environment. It is that secure attachment environment, which is, it is not about blaming anybody. It's just because it is a very high bar to expect that secure attachment environment, especially in our day and age. And so what results is something called fragile confidence. And the kind of confidence that does help us flourish is called optimal confidence. So my research had started about flourishing, but then it turned into confidence and about studying these two different forms of high confidence. Both are high confidence. Fragile confidence is high only as long as you're getting positive feedback, success, as long as things are going well in your life. And optimal confidence is confidence regardless. I mean, yes, we can all feel bad with with negative feedback, bad hair day, whatever you want to call it. But, at the end of the day, it does not affect how we feel about ourselves. Feeling sad doesn't turn into shame. Feeling angry doesn't turn into rage, or whatever, the extreme forms, which is much more difficult to get out of. We're far more resilient. And so it became a study about that and about understanding what is the difference between fragile confidence and optimal confidence. And there is only one thing that differentiates the two, something that we never really even talk about, and it's called global self-esteem. And global self-esteem is essentially about liking ourselves, about accepting ourselves the way we are. So breaking down that construct of global self-esteem into its different components, studying them, learning ways to implement them in our lives, and then seeing where that takes us.
Yeah, I love how, it felt like in reading the beginning of the book and hearing you talk, that it was like an unfolding. Like you had these questions, as good coaches always do,
Yes.
right? You had
Yes.
questions, and then you sort of let it take you places. And one thing you mentioned in the book that struck me was, you, as you mentioned, you do focus on women, but then you also had men coming to you and saying, like, can I read this book? Is this for me? So maybe talk a little bit about that, like how gender does play a role, but how it can also be a very universal. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, so I've been writing for a long time. I've been blogging, I've been guest blogging, and so I have a significant following. And when I went and looked at my following, a good 20 to 25% of them happen to be men. Although I write for women, I mean, I address women when I'm writing, and so, but then these men just stayed on because obviously something appealed to them. So when I was mentioning the book and talking about it and what the book entailed, a lot of men wrote to me saying, I actually relate to all of this. And, don't say it's just for women, it is for men too. And I think I often say it is for sensitive men and it is for conscientious men because, a lot of the way many women end up feeling the way we do is because of societal expectations. It's because of the molds that we are made to fit into. And a lot of men, a lot of young boys growing up can feel the same way, because the same way that we have expectations of women, we also have expectations of men. Now, by and large, men can generally roll with those expectations because many of them are tied to their natural personality traits, but then for some of them, they are not. So, which is why then they struggle and then they try to become somebody else in order to gain that. When you don't feel worthy enough, and where does that self-worth come from? It comes from the external world when we're really little. Then you try and become something else to gain that sense of self-worth, right? So how do we then undo all of those masks that we wear to become somebody else? And yeah, so by and large, it does. I mean, I always say, if you feel you can't be fully authentic, if you feel you can't express yourself the way you are, if you feel you are not giving yourself permission, even if the world is giving you permission, you're not giving yourself permission to be the way you are, then obviously there is some inner work to do. There are some masks to shed, and there is the courage that is required to be able to do so.
Yeah. Thank you. I guess I'm still curious. Do you feel like fragile confidence looks different in men and women, or is it just sort of one big Megillah?
Wow, what a wonderful question, because fragile confidence can look a lot of different ways. In women, now, again, we're talking about generalizations here, right? Because everyone's an individual and very different. But generally, in women, it can show up as a yo-yo between low confidence and high confidence. So it yo-yos quite a bit. You feel confident when things go well, but then even that confidence, you have the imposter syndrome right following you right on the right behind. Even when you get praise, you're like, okay, 1 minute is happy, and the next day is, oh my God, did I really deserve this? I think so-and-so helped me, or I think, it was just luck. I don't think I'll be able to do it again, etc., etc. So for women, it is a yo-yo between self-doubt, the imposter syndrome, feeling good, not so good. For men, again, in general, they can start taking in, because fragile confidence is dependent on external feedback. For men, that external feedback, if you think about it, in workplaces, in societies, is quite consistent. For women, it is not as consistent. You're always reminded of some ways in which you fall short, in subtle or not so subtle ways. And for men, it tends to be more consistent. Their behaviors, even if they're a little bit, talking about themselves in a way that a woman would not feel comfortable doing, she would find obnoxious, or she would not want to talk like that. A man, when he does many of those things, they're just taken, par for the course. Like, it's normal for a man to talk in a certain way. We accept a lot of things from men and we reward them for it. And so that consistent supply of positive feedback can at its extreme lead to kind of narcissistic behaviors. So in general, men, because fragile confidence is dependent on external feedback, and because for men external feedback is more consistent, that fragile confidence can become a way of being, and that confidence can look like overconfidence to many of us. Whereas for women, it is like a yo-yo between low confidence and regular confidence.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm just thinking about, a lot of the men that I know that, grew up with so little. It wasn't that they didn't get positive feedback, but so little affirmation of love. And, they had these very stoic fathers who never told them that they were doing a good job at something. It was sort of an expectation. So I'm just trying to kind of reconcile.
Yes. Oh, that's also such a wonderful question, Margaret, because it is complicated. I mean, insecure attachment, you could have anxious insecure, you could have avoidant insecure. For a lot of people, avoidant insecure can lead to a lot of narcissistic behaviors, or because you never felt that kind of love or confirmation, like you said, you start believing you're better than you really are. That's the only way you can deal with the pain of not mattering to people who you look to matter. And then you just start feeling you're better than you are, and you start being very judgmental of other people. You can't see the good in other people. So yeah, I mean, and that can happen to women too. But again, like I said, because of women's personalities, because of our sensitive nature, because of our agreeable nature, these are personality traits that women tend to have more of. Because of our relational nature, we tend to not become too big in our heads.
Yeah. And another, piece that struck me that I think a lot of people will relate to at work, but also in life, and I think social media really feeds in, is the idea of comparing. So maybe you can give us some sense of like, how does comparing fit into fragile confidence?
Yes. So comparing fits in the sense that when you feel that deep sense of lack, inadequacy, shame, however you want to call it, you try to become something else. Like, these are all the different masks of perfection that you wear. And I talk about 6 of them in the book, which is pleasing. And then there's this perfectionistic behaviors. And there is superiority. There's 6 of them in the book. And so you try to become, and these are all ways of trying to show I'm perfect, like I didn't make a mistake, or I'm better than you, or whatever it is. And then when so you're always looking, it's not intrinsically driven. Whatever you're trying to do is not coming from yourself. It doesn't involve your strengths. Your goals are not always your own. You're always just seeing, am I as good as the other, or am I better than the other, or, so it is always, that's where comparison plays a role. It is your goals and your ways of trying to achieve those goals are not authentic. They're not your own.
Well, and I think I must say for our listeners, and you chime in too, Margaret, if you have something extra, but I think fundraising inherently is it's so much about comparing competitiveness and like, what have you done today? Like, yeah, okay, you got a big gift yesterday, but what did you do today?
Yeah, there's so much pleaser in the space here too.
And somebody else did better. There's a Netflix show that I sometimes see just to give my mind a break, and it's called Selling Sunset. I don't know whether any of you have watched it. It's about real estate, and these group of women who are selling real estate. It's quite a laugh if you want to watch it. But it's all about, somebody sold this house and they made that much, and what have you. There's that constant comparison, and there are a couple of them within it who are very, they're very satisfied, happy, they know what they're doing, they enjoy the process, who don't get caught up in it. But yeah, totally, it can totally, it depends why you're in it, how does it drive you? What are your motivators? And then sometimes, yes, recognizing that voice, because we are social creatures and comparison is a natural thing. So instead of just saying, oh, I should never compare, or, trying to become saintly in some way, just recognize it. How is it affecting me? How is it affecting my interactions? And what will I do about it?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, a big part of our work in that space, I think, is helping people like reconnect to like your why, which, it's very mission focused. Obviously, if you work for a nonprofit, and like, what are your values and how does it align? And many fundraisers will talk about, a way to kind of reground themselves is to connect like the stories, of the people that their organization exists, to serve ultimately. So I do think we definitely see a lot of like people pleasing and sort of people. It's easy to kind of lose yourself, when you work in fundraising, because if you're working for a mission focused organization, it feels so high stakes, literally. Like every day your job feels so high stakes. And so it can be very easy. So what is like, I'm wondering for you, Homaira, like, what are some of the antidotes? Like if people are listening and going, I think I might be riding that fragile confidence roller coaster, what are some of the first steps that we can take to move into optimal confidence?
I'll get to that in a minute. But, when you were talking about that high stakes and in fundraising, I'm just thinking one thing that could be helpful is for people to celebrate properly every time they are however that success is defined in the profession, raised money, because I don't think we do that often enough. And celebration is not only about saying, yay, we made that much. That definitely is a part of it. I think we don't even do that enough, or, guilt-free. But even beyond that, trying to understand what helped me do this, because once we really figure out, okay, what helped me do it, who did I reach out to, what was perhaps my mindset in that moment, what was I thinking about, how was I motivating myself, just recreating the entire scenario, then we feel it is in our control. And maybe when things aren't going so well, we can say, okay, this worked last time around, or these were the people I reached out to, or whatever it was, and let's see whether we can try that again, so that even when it's not happening and others are able to do it and we aren't, we can always say, okay, you know what, this is what works for me. Let me see whether I can try that again. And to your question, how do we start moving from fragile confidence to optimal confidence? I mean, I talk about the growth ladder, and that like I mentioned earlier, there's only one key difference in terms of construct between fragile confidence and optimal confidence. Fragile confidence is things going well. Externally, you feel confident, things have gone well, but there's no underlying feeling of, okay, I'm competent, I'm worthy, etc., etc. Whereas in optimal confidence, it is externally things going well, underpinned by that layer of I'm worthy, I'm competent. At the end of the day, the two components of self-esteem are self-worth and competence. So how do we build them internally within ourselves? And so that is the work. I mean, it is building a sense of belonging, which begins by being good friends to ourselves. Identifying how we talk to ourselves. We generally don't even recognize how negative we are or how dismissal we are of ourselves. Both things. Even when things go well in our lives, we don't fully take it in. And when things don't go badly, we are quite harsh on ourselves. And how do we turn that around? Self-compassion is a huge thing, really trying to understand what self-compassion is, which is not just, it's okay, kind of thing, but it's also the responsibility aspect. So it is both. Paul Gilbert, who's done a lot of research on self-compassion, always talks about the kindness, but then also the responsibility, what's important now, and taking action toward that. So if anything, I mean, begin with self-compassion. And begin with genuinely loving yourself, taking time to be with yourself, understanding your strengths, understanding your humanity, being kind to yourself. I always say, fall in love with yourself like you would fall in love with a newborn child of yours. And that is the love that allows us to forgive ourselves, to forgive other people, to see the humanity in other people. It all begins from there. It is that sense of belonging that is absolutely critical for everything else that follows. Absolutely critical for competence, because it begins with that unconditional love to be able to see ourselves in positive regard. This is belonging and mastery. It is what creates that construct of global self-esteem.
Yeah, Homaira, when we were emailing to get this set up, you mentioned that you had a lot of chaos and disruption during the summer, and that you were living into what you had written. And I'm wondering if you would be willing to share a little bit about what did you do well this summer that had you claim in a beautiful way that you were living into goodbye.
Oh, that is such a wonderful question. And I'm preaching all this, but didn't take the time to really think, what did I do well over the summer? But now that you've made me think about it, Margaret, I think what I did well was there was a big decision that I needed to make. And I think decisions are so complex, and I think they'll keep getting more and more complex for us. One, as we get older, and two, the world has become so complex and chaotic. There are no easy answers. And the decision was a very, 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 very complex one. And one day I would move toward one, and the next morning I would move toward the other. And sometimes I'd move between the two by the hour. And it was just driving me very crazy. And so, one, I brought a lot of compassion to myself to help me calm down so that I could think from a clear space. And then I decided from my gut, and I feel really proud about that. So not just with my gut, but I really followed a process that I usually talk about with my clients as well, which is grounded in a lot of research by Daniel Kahneman. And it is about writing down the pros and cons of both options that we're so confused about, so that we get it all down on paper, so that there are no more, fleeting thoughts, etc., confusing in our heads. Write it all down, look at it, talk about it with others, do whatever you need to do, and then put it all away and go with your gut. And I've never usually decided with my gut before. I always take a very head-centric approach, and I allowed myself to do that. And it brought me a lot of calm and contentment with the decision. And that's something I feel very proud about.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Yes. Good with the gut. And you do talk about that indecision as being part of, right? Like when we can't make a decision, that's a sign.
Yes. Yes. And I talk about the inner guide in the book. And that inner guide is the voice of intuition. And I think the more we develop that, again, in a way, because sometimes intuition can be confused with fear, right? We just feel something in our gut and it could be fear. And we just say, okay, it's intuition and something's telling me this, but it could be fear directing us. So how do you really develop that voice of intuition? How do you build that future self of yours who can guide you and answer a lot of the questions that you have? And so because there's a lot of research on our future selves that shows that a future self is more like a stranger. We don't really know that future self of ours. And so the more time we spend with her or him or, whatever, and try to see, okay, how will that direct our decisions? What did she say to us? How is she living? What brought her there? What are the words of guidance that she can give us right now in our difficult moments? That is a practice. And I try to do that too every single day. Just step for a while into that future self and let her decide a lot of even the smaller decisions, because I always say begin with the smaller things. That is when we are at our most calm and connected, so that we're not trying to, call forth all of these sensitivities that we do have, but trying to call all that wisdom and all that courage forward when we haven't even practiced that muscle ever in the little things.
Sometimes it's hard to decide what to eat for breakfast. Yes, but it's a good place.
Yeah, I have to, I think. Yeah, I'm just, as I'm listening to you, I'm reflecting on, Margaret and David and Michelle and I have all done the same leadership. It was a 10-month arc of this leadership program. And I don't remember the exact moment, but I do remember at some point I felt like something clicked where I was like, oh, it's not like confidence isn't about feeling like you know what to do. Confidence is believing you'll figure it out.
Exactly.
Like that you're enough. Like if you show up with like an intention, and presence, and an open heart, it's like you will figure out what to do. And that, like, it just really, it seems obvious in some ways now, but it was just like, what? Because of course you can't always know what to do. I mean, if confidence only came from knowing what to do, then we'd all be just doing the same like 3 things over and over again, right?
Yes,
Never trying.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's
Nobody
called
would ever write a book if they, I mean, your book wouldn't exist. You know what I mean? Because it's like, well, unless you've written a book before, you don't actually know how to write a book, right? So it's just, I mean, it just makes me laugh. But I do think so much of our society is like some BS idea that like people who are confident like know what to do, and it's like, no, they just believe that they're going to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not even a belief in our head sometimes. It's just a sense, you just go, it's like a child making sand castles on the beach. Literally, that's the way it's often been described. They're just rolling with it. They're just going with it. They just know, they just have a sense. I mean, they don't question themselves. Am I a good sand castle maker or whatever? They just go with it because they know they'll figure it out in the process of doing it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
For that, again, to get to that level, that's called mastery. To get there, you do need a sense of belonging first, because if you feel that somebody is judging you or you are judging yourself with that inner voice, you're not going to do it. So belonging always comes before mastery, having that secure sense that, people are going to encourage me. If I turn to somebody for help, they're going to be there for me. And that you're not going to be beating down on yourself all along and comparing yourself to others. Look, their castle is already bigger than mine. What am I doing here? Wrong profession.
That does actually make, I just would love to ask that, this term imposter syndrome, there's so many, like it's such a buzz about that right now. And I would love just if you could, I don't know, explain to what should we know about that? This idea of imposter syndrome that people are starting to understand enough to, right? Like in my clients, and sometimes, they talk about them that as a diagnosis, I guess, in quotes, for themselves.
I mean, technically, it is just that mismatch between what you know about yourself, which is, yes, I can do a good presentation, or yes, I can raise money in the moment when you've had the success, and what you deep down believe about yourself. Oh my God, I don't know whether I'll be able to do this again. Even if you don't hear it in your head, it's just that gut, it's just that sense. So technically, that's what it means. It's the mismatch between the two. Now, I always say this. It's okay when you feel that. It's okay to feel the self-doubt. It's okay to feel like an imposter or a fraud. The thing is, these feelings are driven from the intrinsic world. We have no control over those feelings because they are very deeply embedded within us. When you're fragile confidence, they're very deeply embedded. So when they come up, all we need to do is not take them so seriously. To recognize them, the self-doubt, the feelings of being an imposter, whatever they are, just see them. They're literally visceral, and we have no control over them. So they come up, you say, there it is, give it a name, call it the whatever, Aunt Fanny, whatever you want to call her, and say, she's here, interesting. Okay, what am I going to do now? So if you feel the imposter syndrome, the first thing is celebrate your success. Say, yes, that went well. What did I do well for that to happen, etc., so that you can start believing that you can do this again. It happened because of something well that you did, and that you can do it again. Similarly with the self-doubt, when it comes up, recognize it and say, okay, that's there. It's trying to protect me. But really, I mean, there's nothing Okay, listen to it. Sometimes you do need to listen to it because that doubt may be telling you something that you need to do. So just listen to it enough, satisfy that, and then just move on. But don't get too caught up in the feeling. One day I was asking a client who was a man, and I was asking him, do you ever feel the imposter syndrome? And he said, I'm sure I do, but I don't give it much thought. And I thought, what a wonderful way of, putting it. Yeah, I mean, many of us feel it. Some of us feel it more strongly just because we feel all emotions more strongly. Some of us feel it more strongly because we give it a lot of thought and importance. But the point is just recognize it, breathe, say, give it a name if you want to, and then just say, okay, what do I need to do now?
Great. I love that. Yeah.
Should we give people something to try? Because we love to give people something to try. So
there's been a lot of things to try.
Yes, there's a lot of things to think about. One solid thing that people can take away, whether it's professionally or personally, to help them. If like I said earlier, if you feel like fragile confidence, and we all have fragile confidence, there's no fixing yourself, but if you're resonating like, maybe I spend more time there and I would like to spend more time in optimal confidence, what's something you would like, Homaira, to give people to try?
You know what, because where the conversation has gone, I think what I would like to give is a practice that I call SING, and it is about celebration. And SING is an acronym, so there are 4 components to it, and it helps a lot with the imposter syndrome because what it does is it helps take a positive moment, whether it's a success, a good interaction, whatever it is, you have a good interaction with your partner, anything in your life where you feel that you could take it in, you should be taking it in a little bit more. It takes that momentary state and turns it into a lasting state because you're taking it in. So SING, S-I-N-G, and S is for see. So first notice that something good happened. For example, at work, don't just close your laptop and just walk home. I mean, spend at least 2 minutes thinking about, okay, what were the good things that happened today? What were the successes, etc. Just so see it, internalize it. The eyes were internalize. Okay, yay, that was good. Janice, well done. Margaret, that was good. Like, allow yourself to feel that celebration. The end is to now nurture it, notice the good that happened. Okay, what did I do for it to happen? This is where you bring more of your logical mind and okay, who did I reach out to? What were the strengths that I used? What was the expertise that I did particularly well, etc., etc. So nurture that, expand it. These are the things that are helping you take it in. And then the G is for gratitude, because, in some way or the other, there has to be somebody or the other who we're grateful for our successes. And I put the G in there specifically for those of us who can tend to be a little bit on the narcissistic side and then just think all of it is only because of us and hog all the praise. I think gratitude really helps us put ourselves, develop a healthy sense of self-worth, not take ourselves that seriously, and not put ourselves at the center of the world either. And that is what a healthy sense of self-worth and self-confidence is about. It is about recognizing our play, a me within a we, and seeing and being appreciative of that and appreciative of others. So I think SING would be a wonderful one where we can actually internalize our positive moments, and it closes that gap of fragile confidence.
Great. Thank you. What a great idea. And we need the gratitude because it takes us from sin to sing, which is important.
Yes. Oh my God, Margaret, that is wonderful.
Yes. I was like, okay, S-I-N. Yeah, here we go.
Don't stop there.
That's right. Keep going. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna just cut my losses here. Homaira Kabir, thank you so much for being with us today. We will put a link to your book, Goodbye Perfect: How to Stop Pleasing, Proving, and Pushing for Others and Live for Yourself. We will put a link to that in the show notes for the podcast. And we are so grateful for your wisdom and your time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret and Janice, so much.
Thank you. Yes. This podcast was brought to you by Fundraising Leadership. We provide unique coaching and training programs to grow nonprofit leaders. Please subscribe if you haven't already. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the show, you can help us continue to bring thoughtful content with a one-time contribution. It supports our production costs and keeps the show ad-free. Contribute today using the link in the show notes, and you will receive one or more of our highly acclaimed online courses. And we invite you to sing, and we say, as always, now go put it into practice.
Curious.